All right, everybody, we are back with some more tournament action, and this time we have a very special tournament in EU Masters, baby. That's right, we were able to recast it, or I was able to recast it alongside Boulevard and special guest Gems coming in there for a TriCast. Actually, my first TriCast, technically, so pretty interesting stuff there. And I do apologize. I did personally have some technical difficulties. Apparently, my internet, I don't know, maybe it was Thanksgiving weekend. There's a lot more traffic than usual. I don't know. Internet wasn't the best this weekend, so technology kind of a downer there. But for the most part, still was able to catch everything A-OK. And to get started, we actually have Spain versus Czechia here. And I do want to mention, again, I know I mentioned this in the last video, below in the description you will find a link to my website with tournament VODs. And what's going to happen is there are going to be certain VODs that are only found on that website now of some of the, I don't want to say less important games, but some of the earlier games in tournaments, right? Like usually Swiss rounds and stuff. For the EU Masters, we only restreamed the top 8. So what I'm going to do is be putting up this first game of Spain versus Czechia here in the top 8. There'll probably be one other top 8 game as well. And then 2 of the top 8 games, including one where there was a huge upset, will actually be located on my website. And then the semifinals and the finals will also be on YouTube. So pretty cool stuff as far as that's concerned. If you want to go ahead and check it out, link below in the description. There's going to be lots of other tournaments as the website begins to grow as well that are put up on there. And you can also find information regarding those tournaments on the website as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into Spain versus Czechia for the first top 8 match of EU Masters. Yeah, it looks like we are getting into game 1 here of Spain versus Czechia. So let's see who's going to be able to take this first victory in the first game of the day. Again, we are going to be here for 4 games today. This is just the first of the 4, and it looks like there'll be France and Poland next, Portugal and Italy, and then Germany, Croatia. Always got to save fresh lobster for last, figures, so we might be here a little while for that last game, but Spain and Czechia up first. Let's see who can take it.
This is a great starting hand from Czechia. They have Mistwraith on 2, they have Risen Mists, they have Callista. The deck normally doesn't really have anything on one end to play outside of, I think it's the 1-drop Nightfall card, and that's it.
This is actually a really good curve for Spain if they can pull an Abyssal Eye off that Lure of the Depths, because that main deck Beast from below, they're actually going to be able to get that down on turn 3. This is not really how I expected the matchup to go, where it looks like Spain is actually going to be able to develop fearsome blockers from turn 3 onward. And not a whole lot of action in the hand of Czechia. They would really like that Mistwraith on 4, and in the absence of it, I'm really not liking sort of what else has been presented by their hand, especially... Oh, but we're not going for the turn 3. Okay.
No, but it's still fine because you have Deadbloom next time, which is also another fearsome blocker, which is going to cost 3 mana. So I think either way, it's not too big of a deal because the next turn is Deadbloom. And then they can do Lure of the Depths later on in the game if they need to.
Yeah, I've heard players talk about saving Lure until after the Nautilus goes off to ensure that you have sea monsters for the large combo turns.
Yeah, and this fearsome Mistwraith deck is honestly, so Boulevard, we just casted the RCO Invitational yesterday, and we saw a fair amount of Mistwraiths there as well. I think there's 3 or 4 people playing it in the NA tournament. Pale Cascade, 100% seems to be the most popular way to play this deck now, just really going all in on that aggression with that extra 2 attack. And Risen Mists that we see 2 of in the hand right now, man, this card can absolutely just, win a game just in and of itself. Just that surprise factor of being able to summon, an X2 Mistwraith. Sometimes by the time you're using it, it's usually like a 5 or 6 attack Mistwraith. And that damage is pretty big, especially against a deck like Deep, where you are trying to take the game early before the Deep deck can actually get those big sea monsters out.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this turn is looking a little bit awkward, though, from Czechia. They have to probably be forced to play this Risen Mist. There's not much else they could do with this hand. It will allow them to push maybe 3 damage, because you probably don't attack with the Glista unless you're going to go, oh, okay, this I like. This is a line I can go with. It will force his beasts from below to come down actually on this turn from Spain to actually have to deal with the number of attackers coming out here from Czech.
And I think when all is said and done, Spain is going to feel like they're in a pretty strong position. You know, you can just take that onlooker hit. Anything else is just going to trade inefficiently with this beast below. And you're going to be left with, you know, a more or less useless Stygian onlooker. And then we're getting into times where we can get down Maokai if we feel like that's the route. We can go for a Devourer. 4 is really not a lot of damage to be pushing on turn 4, especially against something like Deep.
Yeah, you're definitely looking for like a 6 to 8 sort of this turn. You're looking to get them really, really close to that 12 to 10 HP mark. And then by turn 6, have enough for that harrowing to finish up whatever's left. Is like that's the optimal curve. Doesn't always happen, obviously, but that's what Czech is really looking for. And you can see this attack. It's kind of what they're forced to do because they have another Risen Mist Lance. And obviously they can't attack with these Mistwraiths because they'll just get value traded with the beast from below. And they'd rather on the next turn use Risen Mists again to then trade with beast below if they need to.
So, Gems, you actually mentioned harrowing, right? And it's interesting because there's a lot of iterations of the deck now, I think, that are actually cutting harrowing for atrocity. I personally like harrowing. I think it's great in this deck, but the last few times I've seen Fearsome Mistwraiths played, it doesn't seem like they're winning games with harrowing. It seems like it's usually just kind of a dead card for most of the game, and they actually are able to win the game before they even need harrowing. It's still useful in some of the later game control matchups that they might go against, but you know, obviously with this being a closed deck list, I should say, we don't know if there's atrocity or harrowing or what the additional card might be to kind of finish off the game here.
Usually you run 3 harrowings, or Czech did run 3 harrowings, I believe, before in the last week. So whether or not they've switched it out and lowered the amount of harrowings is something. I think they also had 1 atrocity. I believe that was their list. I think
1 atrocity and 3 harrowing. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think that was their list last week. But again, they might have changed it this week, for all we know.
And I know Herring feels really important for those control matchups, specifically any Shadow Isle, Freljord control where you've got avalanches to deal with the early game. It can be really hard to get through those early swing turns. You know, you might push a little bit on turns 2 or 3 up to 4, but then it gets healed over the course of the game with the whales and the grasp and things like that. And I think in those kinds of matchups, Herring's going to come in big. Deep's not really one that I would consider a harrowing win con here for Czechia.
And we'll see if we end up drawing it even. For now, we're stuck with all these Stygian onlookers in it. I know how much you love one drops, Boulevard. So we'll see if
I know how much you love Stygian onlooker.
Well, I like seeing Stygian onlooker after a Ruination is played. That's really where it comes in clutch. But no Ruination here on the side of Spain. So I'm not sure if these Stygian onlookers are really going to be useful in a matchup like this.
All right, SJW, I've found the deck. Are you ready for this? You like Ruination your opponent, and then you just throw down as many Stygian onlookers and ancient Yetis as possible.
That was
a
whiff
on Spain's part.
Ooh,
That's
boy.
not helpful.
That is super bad. I mean, they're forced to probably play the Abyssal High here. Just as a blocker.
Listen, I'm not going to lie. I feel like Stalking Shadows whiffs a decent amount of the time in this Fearsome deck. Like, there's a decent amount of spells being played.
Oh, no, it whiffed for deep.
It whipped for deep.
Oh, whiff for the deep. Okay, never mind. Sorry. So, with that said, though, I will say we're seeing it miss a lot more often than I feel it should be actually missing.
Well, we're seeing players make, you know, I don't know if they're just doing the math wrong, but I feel like 9 times out of 10 when I see this card in a deep deck, they're only running something like 17 followers. And I don't know if people just forget that it can't hit champions and you actually are playing with less than half your deck here, but it is interesting to see, especially with the considerations that we've seen players make in the past for things like Allegiance, where we're cutting down more and more, trying to build more on, yes, this Allegiance whiff feels terrible, you know, are we going to get to a point where people are tired of whiffing Stalking Shadows and we're actually taking it into consideration when building decks?
Well, there's Miscall and Fading Memories, right? We were talking about this yesterday, Boulevard, where there's multiple ways of duplicating things in things like Deep, just Shadow Isles in general. And I don't know, Stalking Shadows feels like the better one because you're technically getting, you know, a 2-for-1 off the draw. But I don't know. I just I'm curious to see why some of these players pick certain, you know, whether it's Miscall, whether it's Fading Memories, whether it's Stalking Shadows. Each of them have their specific use case in certain environments.
Also, one thing to note here, I need to go back to the game a little bit, is that Spain didn't drop the Abyssal Eye, presumably to play around Frenzied Skitterer. which of course we know Czech doesn't actually have. So they end up just having to take this attack maybe a little bit more unfavored for them than they would have liked.
And this is looking to be pushing some more damage here. Going to block with this Deadbloom Wanderer, which is going to get some work done, getting that lifesteal in here. And, you know, luckily enough for the deep deck, too, there is plenty of fearsome blockers, so this is probably not the best matchup, generally speaking, for the fearsome player, unless we are able to be super aggressive early on. I mean, we're already hitting turn 6 right now, which means we're probably going to be going deep sometime soon. We even have the Maokai in hand as well, to, you know, if we need those saplings to challenge out any sort of board that might get a little wider than we want to be dealing with here. So yeah, here comes the Maokai, and things are looking pretty good for Spain right now, I think.
I would potentially disagree, because there's a Doom Beast also in hand of Czech. All they really need is one more good swing turn, and next turn is not looking like a fantastic turn in general as well for Spain. They can drop Nautilus, that's there, and then maybe an Abyssal Eye, and try trade off into a Stygian. They can't trade with Elise, they can't trade with Callista.
Yeah, they're way too far away from deep to go for the Nautilus. I think it is going to have to be the Abyssal Eye, but as you had mentioned, it doesn't pick off anything super impactful. The one thing that they do have going for them is that the Callista isn't reviving Wraithcaller. It is just going for the Mist Wraith, but that, actually, I don't even think it's going for Mist Wraith. I'm trying to remember what's even in the death pool at this point, but it's not going to be summoning permanent Mist Wraiths is sort of the takeaway here.
Yeah, this will get a sapling out, so we'll be able to pick off probably the Stygian Onlooker. This Devourer would trade with everything on the field quite nicely, but if Callista does go in for a block, which I highly doubt we throw Callista for a block, there's the Pale Cascade to allow this Callista to live. So, I mean, yeah, Jebs, you might be right. I mean, the thing with Doom Beast, we were even talking about this yesterday during a game where, I mean, you could just, like, triple Doom Beast sometimes off of a Stalking Shadows for the victory, so I'm curious to see if that's going to come in big. Wow.
I don't know how I feel about that Skitterer, to be quite honest. I feel like you wait for the attack with the sapling nearly always before throwing it, right? Because then you can have you can guarantee the at least level up after.
Well, this is weird too, because we can still pull, if we wanted to, we could pull the Stygian Onlooker to still get a kill with the sapling. So I don't know what this is really doing for Czechia right now, and it looks like the I'm gonna refresh the stream real quick. A little bit of delay there. Not sure if it's on our end or theirs.
On board.
Yeah, this is a pretty scary open attack coming out here from Czechia. I think it's probably just game. It will force a Vengeance out, but a Vengeance, it's going to feel super bad on the side of Spain here. If they, how close are they to deep? Can they drop the landmark and actually?
They're at 19.
No, so no. Landmark is absolutely useless here, and it would mean that if they play Vengeance next turn, that's their whole turn gone.
Yeah, and I do apologize. Looks like we did disconnect there for just a second, but everything is back up, and we're back into the game. So sorry about that, everybody.
Oh man, and that's all the Deadbloom Wanderer is gone actually with that. And another Vengeance is not the top deck you were looking for. Wraithcaller's picked up, but there's no room to play it, as we are going to get the Callista unit coming out as well as the Elise. Czechia throwing the Callista all the way to the left, or just at least to the left of the Elise, so that we get the Callista unit rather than the Elise.
All right, and it looks like I'm going to go ahead and take some time here to make a decision on the side of Czechia. Again, you know, we have this Vengeance to clear up, you know, something like the Callista. If there's development on the side of Czechia, we could get down a Nautilus here, but not sure if we're even going to want to go ahead and do that. Yep, it looks like we're going to go ahead and take the attack, and we'll see. So, Boulevard, did we figure out what this Callista is going to go ahead and grab?
I'm pretty sure it's Mist Wraith, but I'm not 100% on that. I don't think anything with 3 attack has died.
Yeah, Mist Wraith. Mist Wraiths, right? That's it.
Yep. So, I mean, Vengeance kills a Callista here, but I'm pretty sure the Pale Cascade... Well, actually...
So you can only block... You can block with Maokai on the Doom Beast, and then the others have to block Fearsomes, right? You block Callista, that stops 10 damage, and then you block Skitter, and then you're taking exactly 4, so he's 1 off, right?
Yeah, it is a little awkward, and I'm curious to see if Spain is going to get greedy and go for the Vengeance on the Callista. You know, you can get down this Nautilus next turn. That'll go deep. You can proactively Riptide if you really need to, sort of on the following turn. But I know that you do want to get this Callista off before the next attack turn. And honestly, I'm not actually seeing a way for... it's looking a little rough here.
Yeah, this is going to be 2-4. That's 9 damage total. I imagine we almost have to use the Vengeance onto...
No, the Mistrate's going to die because of the Callista damage.
Yeah, I was going to say the Frenzied Skitterer. So that means it's still going to feel really bad having to Vengeance a Frenzied Skitterer, but I mean, hey, at this point if it's going to save you 3 health, then go for it. Feels good. Yeah, I mean, it's really close cuz there's really not a good way for Czechia to finish out the match here. We do have Pale Cascade for additional damage, but that's about it.
Yeah, they can pick Pale Cascade, but the problem is they don't get the draw off of it. Okay, so they're prioritizing removing Maokai. Okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's going to feel pretty good. I think that is going to prevent deep on the following turn. If I've done my math right, I believe there's 17 cards in deck left for Spain, so it would have been really nice to get that Maokai down, have it get leveled off of that. So I think now when Maokai comes down, or when Nautilus comes down, rather, it's not going to be leveled. We can Stalking Shadows to go deep, and that might be the play. And honestly, excuse me, if we can find, you know, Beast Below off that, that's going to feel pretty good since we'll be able to get it down in the same turn as well.
Ooh, Spain running Miss Call in their deep lists.
Oh, Slaughter Doc's actually going deep this turn.
Okay.
Yeah, but it doesn't activate until the next turn, which is like a little bit potentially too late. But look at the top deck here from Czech. They get the Stalking Shadows, and boy, that's depending on what options they get, that could just end the game right now. If they get Doom Beast, that's pretty much guaranteed. I don't think there's any way Spain can really stop the full board attack next turn after Doom Beast also coming down.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. Doom Beast, such a ridiculous card for these aggro decks. It looks like we are just going to get these Stalking Shadows played. Let's see what we get here. Do we get a Doom Beast? I don't know why I thought they were going to have the card show up there. I guess that's... No. Oh, there it is. Oh, they do. Okay, so Wraithcaller and Mistwraith. Not Doom Beast, unfortunately. But this is going to be more fearsome attackers for it next turn. We know that, you know, obviously we're out of Ruination Mana here, so we can go ahead and develop some more on the side of Czechia.
Yeah, it's more the fact that now, because Deep is active, Nautilus can come down the board. Multiple sea monsters are going to be coming down through Slaughter Docks. It's just a lot of blockers, basically, from now. And this is the point where it gets a little bit awkward for the Fearsomes list. They kind of have to just attack and hope that Deep doesn't get to develop a whiteboard and try to sneak in any damage possible.
Do you go for Stalking Shadows here to try to get some more like 0-cost Deep units? Is that a thing? I mean, again, we have closed deck lists.
Beast from Below and Abyssal could still be played.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you do go for it, just so you can get another blocker.
There's also Riptide. So, you know, if we have the Slaughter Doc's going to spit out a sea monster, we're going to have, if we do get something off of Stalking Shadows, that will be another blocker we can throw down. And then we do have Riptide. So that would give us enough units to essentially block the entire field on the side of Czechia. We also are probably going to get, it looks like we're going to get this Abyssal off to draw something. Unfortunately.
Or Devourer, even better.
Yeah, Devourer is actually pretty nice here.
I thought we were going to go for the... Oh, right. I forgot that we Lure the Depths this game, so we can't get that down. And that's going to give us Vengeance. Oh, no, we don't have Vengeance and Riptide on the following turn. We did use that one last mana, but we should only need one spell.
Boulevard, why play Vengeance when we have a 1-mana Devourer, okay? Come on, we don't even need Vengeance right now.
Yeah, this is now looking really dire. I really like that Stalking Shadows play from Spain. They ended up getting Devourer, which is, I think, the best option. I think the second best would have just been another Abyssal that removed the Callista, which means no more Mistwraith coming down, which means Czechia now probably has to dump down their Wraithcallers here to have any chance of even sneaking in 1 damage on the next turn.
Yeah, I don't think there's any universe where Spain gets away on the next turn with taking 0 damage. They do only have... you know, I mean, like, you do theoretically get a push a fair amount of damage here, but I don't know if Czechia is going to care too much about going down to 1. I'm surprised not to see the Nautilus attack, but I mean, if there's anything super, you would at the very least be taking Doom Beast off the field.
Yeah, Doom Beast will probably block it. I mean, yeah, I'm just like thinking it's still super tough. Do they even? Is there a consideration just to drop the Elise down over the Stygian? But I don't think it matters really.
Yeah,
Just
it
to play
doesn't
around
seem to
with.
matter. It's just 2 damage either way.
And Jettison, pretty much a nothing draw too. Not going to help Spain stay in this one. And yeah, no, Boulevard, you might be right. Or, we might actually need the Vengeance and the Riptide, depending on what else comes down. We might need to have that 11 mana, but unfortunately, only going to be on 10 next turn. As of now, would be
I
exactly.
think it only matters if they get another Stalking Shadows into a Doom Beast, which at this point seems really unrealistic. They've already found their Stalking Shadows. They've already found one Doom Beast. To have them top deck another one into a Doom Beast would be a little unreasonable of an ask on the side of Czechia.
Yeah, the problem for Czechia really is that they have no way of dealing with Abyssali. So they're on a timer. They can block everything else because they have Harrowings and stuff, but they have literally no way of dealing with this Abyssali. It's just going to hit them for 6 on every attack. So,
all right, what's coming out of here? I love this animation.
Oh, it
it's
just
Abyssali
tossed
number 2.
It tossed the Beast from below too, unfortunately, which would have been a nice blocker. And yep, Abyssali. So we might be able to just end the turn or end the game next turn for Spain if Czechia can't end the game here.
I'm not sure how much of the board of Spain is actually going to survive this. It looks like you will be able to hang on to actually a fair amount. I think one Abyssali is going to die, or maybe you just throw out a blocker onto the Doom Beast and then Vengeance the Wraithcaller. Yeah, I think that everything gets to live, or at least everything you care about. You're going to lose your Devourer of the Depths, but you don't really need that anyway.
yeah, the Devour is irrelevant. All that matters is the Abyssali surviving because you have such a good timer on your opponent with 2 attacks this way around. And yeah, this is just a little bit poor. I feel like Czechia, I know it depends if they're running Atrocity. Atrocity might be the card they're going to be looking for. However, though, as we know, there's a Vengeance there just to handle that if we do see anything like that coming down. And I actually like the Riptide here more than Vengeance because putting a Miswraith into the deck is actually pretty bad for Czechia here. They really want things like Doom Beasts. They really want things like Harrowings after this attack now.
This is also, at the moment, going to leave Czechia with 0 fearsome blockers. They are going to have to develop a little bit more. I don't see a reason for them not to, especially if they do want to play for that Atrocity out. But things not looking, super great for Czechia at the moment. We had mentioned there is a little bit they can probably do to get back into this, but it might be too little too late at this point. I think now, with that Vengeance still in hand and Atrocity off the table, it's got to be Stalking Shadows into Doom Beast.
Yeah, Devourer looking like it's going to come down onto this Callista here. And I don't know, I mean, I've looked at the face on Spain a couple times here, and they look a little surprised. Oh, what's Lure of the Depths? Abyssal Eye, another one. That's going to be game on the open attack if we get the Abyssal Eye down.
Yeah, we're going to override over that Ephemeral unit.
It's guaranteed, I think, as well. I literally don't think Czechia has anything in their deck to stop it.
Wow. I mean, technically, the Wraithcaller gives enough blockers for the non-elusive units, but that's about all we got.
Yeah, if only you weren't taking 18 elusive damage.
Wow.
Well, yeah, this just goes to show you should play Spider aggro so that you have things like Noxian Fervor and Decimate. You can go over the top.
I was just going to say that is one of the downsides to Fearsome.
Yeah,
they even get the high roll onto the Shipwreck Hoarder. Or not Shipwreck Hoarder, Terror of the Tides.
Because why not? You might as well. If we're going to win it, do it in style at this point, right? And yep, you're going to get the surrender. And wow, so Czechia getting taken down there. And that was not expected, I think, from either side there. That was a pretty insane game where it seemed like the Fearsome deck was going to go ahead and take it away there.
Yeah, there's a few interesting turns that I thought could have been played slightly different from Czechia. The Skitterer turn comes to mind predominantly. I think they should have held off a little bit on the Skitterer.
Yeah.
And then they maybe could have gotten an Elise level up if they were lucky. And that might have been the line.
So obviously everybody in this tournament is a phenomenal player, blah, blah, blah. They're all high on ladder, good for all of them. Czechia hasn't really been outplaying their opponents. They've been winning in the pick ban phase. They've been outmaneuvering them through that phase of the game. And seeing them bring what looks like a very safe lineup into the top 8 really isn't the road that got them here. And I'm curious to see if they sort of needed that outmaneuvering within the pick ban. You know, I don't want to say cheesy because it's not cheesy. It is very smart what they've been doing and the way that they've been able to play this tournament so far. But it looks like they have pivoted to a different plan for the top 8 here and now have fallen in game number 1 against Spain. I don't believe we have moved to a best of 5 for Top Cut. I think this is still a best
Only
of
the finals. Only the finals.
only final. Okay, so yeah, it is still. You are suddenly one game from being out of the tournament.
Yeah, and that's a little bit scary because you've been doing so well all the way up until this point, and then all of a sudden you get to the quarterfinals, and I believe you're also out of the money. Really, I think eighth is like 50 quid or something.
Yeah, it's
not.
really
I don't even think it's in the money. I think it's only top 4 that is in the money, so they're still not even like in the money for winnings yet. They have to win, I believe, this match to actually earn anything.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate for them to have made it this far and then be, so close, but at the same point, so far from actually being able to make the semifinals and the finals here. But we are getting back over to that pick ban screen. So I'm going to go ahead and load that up just so that we can take another look at the different champions that were banned. It does see, now I know there has been some issues with them showing the proper champion, so I hope this isn't wrong, but Karma, having been banned, are we scared of Karma right now?
Karma is in just about everyone's lineup.
Really?
It's
okay.
been banned a lot. It's been left. I mean, when it's a 9-deck format, you kind of have like the 5 decks that you want to bring, and then just a lot of stuff that you need to be like, it's kind of like a boogeyman. Like, oh, like I have no intention of playing the spooky Karma, but you might ban it.
Yeah, we haven't really seen a whole lot of Spooky Karma other than it looks like in the EU Masters. Have you guys actually been able to cast the Spooky Karma game, or does it typically always get banned out?
It gets banned out most of the time. I think we've saw some.
We've cast it twice, and it has shit. I cannot describe to you the beautiful sight of how spectacularly that deck shit the bed.
Yes! Oh man, that sounds like it was a glorious moment then, Boulevard.
It was absolutely
That's exciting.
Disgusting. We had players not finding karmas and drawing all 3 rekindlers. We saw players clunking up on go get it's and things like that. Now the question mark is this back alley poker or is this undying out of Czechia? Because we've seen this trick before.
I think the MF is the undying. I think this is just back alley now.
What if they're both undying?
I mean, they could be, but what I really curious to see is if this Spain Shen Fiora switched to having more notifies in their list now instead of denies. That's one thing I'm really curious about from Spain. Have they teched more notifies to deal with something like a go hard matchup, so they don't have to use as much more expensive removal to just deny the pack your bags and other sort of key cards, it's pretty much that's it, right? It's just go hard that you have to care about denying.
Yeah, and I think we saw that yesterday, Boulevard, where, the matchup against the Go Hard deck, somebody was actually trying to just deny and notify as many Go Hards as possible till the late game, but at the end of the day, the Go Hards won out. They're actually down to 4 cards in deck while still being able to shuffle some Go Hards back in.
Yeah, it was Scratched Cata playing some Ionia mess, I guess is the best way to put it.
So, I guess if you want, geez, no credit.
Well, it was a Yasuo deck, right? That's a mess.
Yeah, it was here. Yeah, that is.
Wait, you had the Yasuo yesterday. Okay.
Oh yeah, we saw Yasuo.
It's nearly as bad. It's nearly as bad as seeing Vladimir.
Whoa! Them are fighting words, all right?
Well, hold on. Black Boss brought Blood Riders back for the Team IQ tournament. Now, he might have gone 1-2 with it in the portion of the tournament he did play it in, but he brought it out.
All right, so we do have the Caretaker to get started here, though, on the side of Spain. Looks like we're still going to pass, wait for something to get played. Yeah, it looks like kind of playing around the hired gun and works out to his advantage. I imagine we drop this Caretaker now, but it's very likely we can go in, just save the spell mana, bank it into turn 3. But we do have plenty of barriers to start pumping this bad boy up, and Fiora on turn 3 will feel pretty decent as well.
Yeah, I feel like the Shen Fiora might try to go heavy on the Fiora win con, because there isn't really much to stop it outside of go hards.
Oh, Boulevard, let's talk about this Fiora win con. All right.
Let's talk about this Screeching Dragon win con, because whenever I was playing back alley poker, that was the card that I hated to see the most come down, because I'm like, damn, I don't think I can kill that thing unless I top deck a Vengeance or Crumble. But the chances of that even working out if I don't have it on the turn the Screeching Dragon comes down aren't necessarily high, because there's not a lot of super high priority deny targets in this deck. It's extremely inefficient to do it onto the go hard, and if they've already shuffled additional go hards into their deck, maybe you do just want to save it for that high priority removal. Even if you have to do it on the pack your bags, yes, the next go hard is still going to be pack your bags, but if they don't have another copy in hand, then you do come out on the top of that trade.
Yeah, so I do agree with Gems, though. I think that there is going to be a lot of smaller units hitting the board, and I think this is something that Czechia is going to have to kind of monitor throughout the first few turns of this game, with Fiora having already hit the field on turn 3. We do have a keg, which is pretty good. We can go into potentially a TF gold card to just straight up take out the Fiora, or at least if it doesn't, draw something out like a sharp sight or a riposte here. But it looks like instead going with the go hard into eventually maybe even now the red card set up for the TF. But plenty of ways to remove this Fiora if Czechia wants to.
Yeah, however, though, I feel like Sharp Sight should be good enough to keep Fiora alive this turn.
Yeah,
it had to be TF gold card, right? That's like, and then go hard, which you can't really do both this turn, and then they'll have more riposts available. I feel like Fiora can actually potentially just survive here.
Yeah,
I feel like with the damage already being pushed onto the Fiora, though, she's going to get to survive, but I don't think her win con is necessarily on the table unless we can find a Shen.
Yeah,
but there's 3 riposts. Currently, there's 3 riposts in hand.
There's a lot of barriers. It's weird, right? I feel like with Fiora, if you take any damage, if she's at 3-1 and she hasn't even killed a unit left there yet, that feels bad. You're already at a really severe disadvantage of trying to get to her win con. So we'll see if we are able to actually utilize this barrier. If this attack gets through, it looks like it will. And then eventually get followed up, like you guys mentioned, with a TF gold card, a red card, a go hard. There's a lot of different options. As Czechia, I guess the question, especially if you really are worried about Fiora right now, I mean, red card is a very significant choice over gold card because of the sharp sight that we see in hand. So do you always go with gold card knowing that your opponent probably has a sharp sight, especially sitting on 2 mana? I feel like sitting on 2 mana, you're always at this point going up against a barrier deck. You just assume there's a sharp sight in your opponent's hand unless you've seen all 3.
I'm trying to math out if we can level this Twisted Fate next turn.
Oh, God.
Or at least in response to the Fiora attack. The answer could be yes, but I don't think you're ever going to go for that. I am curious to see if it is the gold or the red. And it is the gold, playing around that sharp sight, and that means we are going to have go hard on the following turn. And this is why I don't care about 3 riposts in Spain's hand. You are going to have to ripost a go hard next turn if you really want to keep this Fiora alive. But at the end of the day, if you commit all of these riposts onto this Fiora, and that Fiora does not win you the game, you have thrown away an insurmountable lead.
The glimpse is also a huge draw for Czech, because that just delays the win condition, and if we see Spain going heavy on it, that could actually end up falling a little bit in behind, actually, and even being able to achieve that. And I feel like they have to potentially now, I mean, I don't know if Spain will see it. Obviously, Spain won't necessarily see this, but they might have to switch their game plan over to the Screeching Dragon.
Which doesn't feel terrible. This is exactly why Boulevard just mentioned earlier. Let's talk about this Screeching Dragon win con, because this card is insane, and especially, again, against these smaller units. We'll probably be able to clean up possibly even 3 units, if not more, thanks to Fury on the side of Czechia. But go hard right now, going to go ahead, threaten this Fiora. You're on the defensive, so playing a riposte just to save Fiora here feels really bad. Deny feels not better. It's definitely a tough decision.
Even if you manage to protect this Fiora, what are you going to riposte up another, like a 1 out of 4 Fiora on the following turn? Because every riposte that you're going for, it's not necessarily a -1. Theoretically, it is a 1-for-1 on the unit that you are trading it with. But how many of those can you actually do when you are getting buried in one of the heaviest draw decks in the format of TF Gohard? And it looks like we have decided this Fiora is just not worth protecting at this point.
Yeah, I actually don't disagree with that, or I think it's the right line. I feel like just dropping Screeching Dragon this turn is probably what you're looking for. How many go hards is that then? That's 2, right? So they are 2 away from a pack your backs. We have to. That's, I think, the count. We have to count this, because that's going to be the key here, especially on how much draw that's in Czechia's hand. They have glimpse. All their hand is draw right now. Their hand is quite literally draw.
Yeah, and it's, Boulevard mentioned it earlier, this Twisted Fate level up. It's always a thing in the TF Go Hard deck. And if we do allow this TF to go ahead and level up, we're going to have major problems on the side of Spain. With that said, there are plenty of ways for Spain to go ahead and deal with this TF. We don't have any in hand, unfortunately. No single combat, no concerted strike, no combat tricks or anything like that. So that does feel a little bit bad But yeah, we're getting there too. We're getting another draw with good old Betty Croker. This might be a TF level up here with no response on the side of Spain.
Does Betty Croker get the good old tag because she's in the Starspring deck, or?
Sure. Let's go with that.
All right.
I feel like everything's got the good old tag at this point.
That's
so.
fair. This card is what, like a month and a half old?
Oh God.
This is a pretty aggressive attack, actually, from Czech. They don't actually have to do this, but they're still going in for it anyway. I mean, what we're going to see here, obviously, is they want to potentially throw... They're just basically looking for an excuse to throw a glimpse, right?
Yeah. You kind of take that free block, or you get sort of that free attack through by having the dragon line up the block on whatever you wanted to glimpse you on, but... And the hand out of Czechia not looking phenomenal right now. They got a little bit of draw left in the Twisted Fate and the this Bull Shark, and now that is the third go hard.
Yeah, but look at Spain's hand, right? Spain's hand is it's I was gonna say atrocious, but we'll stick with not great.
We'll give him a little bit of credit, just a tad bit. Yeah, I gotta agree. It's not great. Lots of spells here when we really actually don't need the spells. Maybe the deny comes in handy, but we can see on the side of Czechia, deny isn't really going to get a whole lot of accomplished right now. On the bright side, Screeching Dragon will probably clear up a couple of these units, probably starting with the Pool Shark here in just a second. But passing back over to Czechia here, we could just pass and go straight into Czechia's turn. I don't think that's a bad decision on the side of Czechia if we go that route, because that's just one attack token down, and you don't mind about just going into the next turn, drawing a little bit more, and yeah, that's what Czechia is going to go ahead and decide to do.
Shen feels like one of the most important cards in this matchup for Spain because there is so little interaction on the side of Czechia that's able to pop those barriers in combat. And I mean, at the end of the day, Spain just found the wrong champion. We see the second Fiora here, and yeah, you do need the Shen alongside a challenger champion or just a challenger in general like that Screeching Dragon, because Screeching Dragon could eventually get out of the range of the Pack Your Bags if you can barrier it up every turn. But I mean, it looks like Czechia is just on the plan of eventually we're just going to try to maintain as much aboard as possible, especially if Spain is unwilling to throw out attacks with the Screeching Dragon waiting for higher priority targets. Then eventually we just pack your bags and go for a lethal push on that turn, or at least a significant enough push that I can finish you off with Doom Beast later.
Doom Beast. Why does this... I feel like we're constantly talking about this card at this point. Doom Beast is so good. One of the best cards, I think, in the game at this point. We're seeing it in so many different decks. And the difference between Fearsome and TF Go Card is incredible. And yet both of them are able to utilize Doom Beast in very similar ways to just close out the game.
I mean, who doesn't like heal for 2, do 2 damage,
yeah,
develop a 3/2 on the board?
Oh, yeah.
You said TF Go Hard so fast, I thought you said TF Go Kart. And I was like, finally, we're getting the Legends of Runeterra Mario Kart spinoff that we've been asking for. Riot finally heard us.
It's the Crash Team Racing spinoff, not Mario Kart. The premier.
My Burnout Paradise.
Burnout. Wow, we just went all over the place there. We had Mario Kart, CTR,
hey, I stuck with kart.
Burnout.
I stuck with kart racing at least.
Give me Twisted Fate's Twisted Metal.
And now Twisted Metal's in there. Wow, I just had this wave of nostalgia just like flow over me from my childhood. Rip Twisted Metal. But it looks like we are going to get the Jagged Butcher down on the side of Czechia. And this is another thing that you sometimes have to be worried about playing against this TF Go-Kart deck, is the wide board. We have 6 units on board, which, alone, yeah, sure, 2 damage. We talk about this with Zap Spray Fin. Seems like 2 damage isn't really that impactful on a turn-by-turn basis, but they add up. And especially when you have this wide of a board, you actually manage to have a more stable board than the board control or board-centric deck of the Barrier Fiora deck. So we're actually just going to start pushing damage for possibly lethal in the next couple of turns.
Yeah, and we've got that trick again. Oh, the Prismatic Barrier pre-committed onto the Fiora does mean that is just sort of the prime glimpse beyond target now.
I mean, you could deny this, but then they're leaving themselves open to not having deny available for Vengeance, Ruination, and Pack Your Bags.
Yeah, and I think you probably need to. I mean, it's weird, right? Because if you deny this, in theory, they are farther away from packing their bags, and it looks like we are just going to go for that on the side of Spain, saying, you know what, I need these units to survive. I need this Fiora to get a kill and start to ramp up. No River Shapers found yet on the side of Spain. No Shens either. Just really not getting sort of the key cards for a matchup like this.
Yeah, and I do agree with the deny. I think at this point you don't really have a choice, like you said. You know, any draw with this deck is just, you don't want it to happen. The less draw that you can make sure your opponent has, the better. I mean, you're at 5, so I don't know how much that's gonna matter. It looks like this is actually, what is that, the third one played now?
Yeah.
For Go Hard. So we do have Pack Your Bags online, and we're in kind of top deck mode here. So we'll see what Czechia gets. Pool Shark, and that's the thing about top deck mode for TF Go Hard. Every top deck feels like a good top deck when everything in your deck top decks more top decks, if that makes sense. You're just going to keep drawing.
Something I wanted to point out here, Spain, very boring, has gone with the default board, card back, and pet. But on the side of Czechia, you know, they've gone full shield. They've got all the new stuff that came out in patch 1.15. We've got Umpa, we've got Umpa's card back, and
How
we've
do
got
you
the
know
Christmas
that
board.
thing's name is Umpa? What?
I mean,
because when they posted the patch notes, I looked up his name so that I could tell someone that I would die for Umpa.
I mean, no offense, but have you seen Spain's background? He does not look like the guy who would spend stuff on cosmetics. He doesn't even have anything in
This isn't his account. I just
bedroom.
assumed everything is unlocked on this account, and he made the conscious choice to go for the default everything.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why we love to have Boulevard here on Cast. He gives us all the important information that we need to worry about during
If
game.
you don't want to spend money, that's fine. I'm 99% sure everything is already unlocked on the account.
And yeah, here's the Zap Spray Fin and the Pack Your Bags. This is going to be closing it out.
Pack Your Bags number 2 does mean deny is not going to be enough.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the interesting thing with deny, right? If you do play one Pack Your Bags, it is denied, which means the rest of them do not get changed back into Go Hard, which means the next one can just be played as well. So this must feel pretty good for Spain, like, haha, that's right, I got to deny, I'm coming back in this. Nope, not going to happen, buddy.
I mean, does it? You're staring down lethal damage. You'd have to use this concerted strike, and then even then, like, you're really just left on this Screeching Dragon. And I mean, yeah, we saw an opening of 3 riposte on the side of Spain and just never even found the time to get 2 of those down.
Yeah, and coming back on over to us, I got to say, TF Go Hard is just proving consistently how amazing of a deck that it is, being able to take down Fiora Shen Barrier there. Pretty impressive stuff by Czechia. Going to go ahead and take it to a Game 3 as well, which is always exciting. Love to see us some Game 3 action, so we'll see who's able to take the series.
Look, SJW, if you're going to take your casting to the next level, you got to one-up it, right? I know you know all the card names, or rather, I know you know most of the card names. There are a couple that are still questionable. Now you got to start learning the names of the cosmetics and the skills of the cards.
Umpa? Come on, man. Actually, I already forgot. Oh, Kitty. No, I remember Kitty. From yesterday, we were talking about what the cat was, too, and that's Kitty.
And
He needs to learn all the voice lines of every single animation.
Levins has us covered on that one. I think the Infernal Dragon, its name isn't Charlie, but that's what Umbridge called it in the sort of trailer video for it, so I'm going to call it Charlie every time I see it.
Oh, it's Charlie. Yeah, it's funny, because that's like the one that I do remember because Umbridge called it Charlie. So we're just going to stick with Charlie for now. It's fine. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in this game, but it's been interesting so far with this EU Masters, I got to say, casting, just because it's a much different style of gameplay than we're used to with other tournaments, which I'm not opposed to necessarily. I kind of like the pick and ban phase that we have here. I know Boulevard, you got your own thoughts on bans and whatnot. I know you're not crazy about them.
Which are wrong, but we're completely wrong.
I don't like them, and people took that as they're bad, and I'm like, and people are like trying to convince me that they're good, and I'm like, well, you can't convince me to like them, and that is the argument that you've walked into, and you're trying to teach me. It's not working out for you here, bud.
Oh man, but it's been good. And I think that, you know, coming into this, and I was already, you know, when we've casted previously Boulevard, you already told me, you'd mentioned Europe a lot, EU Masters, and you're like, oh hey, well, you know, we see Spooky Karma a lot, we've been seeing Weimer a lot, and these are decks to me that are like a foreign language, like I don't even know what you're talking about, but we're seeing a lot of diversity here in this tournament.
You've been stuck in NH for too long, SJW. We can't be the Globetrotters if you're only going to do Brazil and Latin America and call that international.
Ooh.
So yeah,
But-
no. Or go ahead, Jeff.
Now
sorry.
get back to the game quickly. I'll be the guy who has to drag you guys back for today, I guess.
Yeah, you need to keep
what-
us in line, Gems, because we get off track a lot. Just gonna warn you.
So Czechia and Spain now both have one win apiece, and does Czechia go back to the mistrates? Is the question.
That is a good question. I don't know.
Ooh, Ashe Sedge versus Lee Sin. Haven't seen this matchup for a long time.
So Lee Sin, we actually are gonna get Lee Sin Zed. Okay. So Lee Sin Zed, we're actually just talking about this as well, Boulevard, with Zed. I mean, do we like Zed and Lee Sin now? Like, is there just better ways to play Lee Sin than tossing a Zed in there just because doubling with Overwhelm and stuff feels good?
I mean, I sort of said my piece on Tarek. I feel like he's actually a much more viable choice now that he is at 3 attack, but I don't hate the Zed still. It's not something like I would have to sit down and kind of play with both of the versions a couple of times and see which one feels better, but I do think that Tarek is at least at a point where he's worth testing where he wasn't necessarily previously, and I know a lot of players were saying that Zed still helps a lot in the aggro matchups. This is not an aggro matchup. This is a matchup where I do not think the Zed is going to help too much. There is always a chance that it just dies on turn 3 to, like a Brittle Steel and an Avarosan Sentry, but we will have to see how it comes out. I think that Zed actually does have a fair amount of opportunity to just run away with the game in this matchup if you can't kill it early or if you go for a Frostbite and a Pale Cascade comes out onto it.
Yeah, I mean, there's the option also, the fact that the only real removal for something like I said, or even Lee Sin, is going to be a culling strike. So your notifies and your denies are going to be super valuable in this matchup just for stopping that. And if you can just keep, eventually the Ashe Sedge will run out of freeze. That's the thing. They have a, they don't necessarily, they might not be running 3 harsh wins, and Brittle Steel is kind of irrelevant outside of Zed, really. So there are lines in which the Lee Sin can win here.
So is that what we're setting up with this mid-range Frostbite again? Is this like, going for that OTK, freeze the whole board, go in for the kill type win here? Is that the win con for Czechia?
No, just basically they just have to consistently stop the Lee Sin going off, basically, and then they win by that way. Most of the time, build a board big enough around that.
A really big Reckoning will also destroy the board of the Lee Sin, and they really only have Deny for that, which we do not currently see in the Hand of Spain. I gotta say, you can definitely tell that this is a team tournament, because I cannot imagine a world where CDS Fall has had his Frostbite mid-range unbanned for this long, and he doesn't just slam it down as fast as he can. That man runs that deck at every opportunity he can, but, it's gone unbanned now a couple times in this tournament, and his teammates have had to sort of talk him down from that one.
So yeah, this looks like a pretty solid attack here from Czechia. I quite like attacking here because I like it because we can see both hands, and you're either going to guarantee 3 damage or the Mentor's going to block, which I really doubt Spain's going to want to block with Mentor because they want to get this Zed down on the next turn and buff it by +2/+2.
So this actually seems like it's really good for Czechia here. We're going to curve pretty nicely into Ashe on turn 4. And not only that, we'll have the Troll Chant to, kind of back her up in case something goes wrong, something goes awry. So we'll see if we do get the Ashe next turn. And that means we'll be going into potentially an open attack on turn 5 here with the Ashe being able to Frostbite.
Ooh, that is a lovely top deck. They're getting the Yeti straight on 4, which is, I mean... I'm not sure if you've heard me talking about this shit, but I've played a lot of Ashe Sedge. Yeti, the reason why getting that Yeti on 4 is so crucial in this deck is because most of the time on 5 you're playing stuff like Hearthguard. It's rare that your turn 5 will have space for a Yeti, unless your curve ends up being something a little bit weird like what they currently have now.
Yeah, and it looks like we are considering tossing this Zed down. It looks like we are going to get it, and if we're able to get this Mentor off supporting the Zed here, this will be pretty big, being able to start cloning this Zed early on, going for an attack here. And this is what we were talking about earlier. An early Zed is pretty insane versus really any matchup. Zed feels like it's not the greatest card in this metagame right now. Obviously, it's typically been paired with Lee Sin, but... And no matter what matchup you're against, an early Zed buffing it and starting to, get those clones out early feels like it's pretty impressive, not going to lie.
And we do know that it's going to be disastrous if we try to go in for the Zed attack. It looks so juicy. We're outside of Brittle Steel range. We're only punished by Troll Chant or Flash Freeze, but, we do see the Troll Chant, as well as the Harsh Winds could even come down if we want to try and accelerate that Ashe onto the Zed and just get a block down onto the Yeti with it.
I mean, it depends. They could even be running copies of Flash Freeze for all we know. But again, it's one of those things. Like, do you risk it? Does Spain do they take this risk here and go for this attack?
You really only push 5 damage. You would lose the Mentor as well as the Zed. I mean, maybe there is the consideration that, you know, if this Zed play doesn't work out, then you need the Lee Sin to come online. And currently, you need those gems in hand in order to actually get the Lee Sin level off. Looks like they are going to go for it.
Yeah, this is going to push through at least 5 damage, but Troll Chant being hovered by Czechia. Let's see what ends up coming out. Looks like, yeah, we are going to go ahead, save the Yeti, kill the Zed. This works out quite nicely. The Pale Cascade would not save Zed here.
Neither would Hush.
Yeah, neither would Hush.
The combination Hush Pale Cascade.
Yeah, that's, yeah, unfortunately only 3 mana
for that one.
Yeah. Deny off the top. So, yeah, this feels bad to lose the Zed this quickly. I mean, you know, Czechia just kind of had the perfect cards to deal with that early Zed. Gonna take some early damage, which is a big deal, but I don't think in the long run it's going to matter because Czechia, I believe, is really going to be able to run away with the tempo game here with still Ashe, Sejuani, and an Icevale Archer in hand on follow-up turns.
Well, it's like those I don't think even matters. The fact they have Archer plus double Hush wins, right? Mm-hmm. At no point, if they're going to be under enough pressure to have to use those outside of Lee Sin in this match. And that's, I think, the key thing. And, oh, okay. They're just dropping the Archer. I mean, I 100% would have just kept that if we saw Lee Sin coming down.
I don't mind the Archer. I think we're going to see the Ashe next turn, so I think we're just trying to go in for as much damage as possible, possibly next turn. So we'll see. We also have Omen Hawk as well, which is a pretty timely top deck. We could try to toss that down and get some mana commitment out of Spain first. Looks like Czechia is going to decide to do that, and this is pretty big.
I gotta say, I actually really like the gem onto the Eye of the Dragon at the first opportunity, because now if Ashe does come down, it's not going to freeze that Dragonling. It is going to freeze this unit that you had absolutely no intentions of blocking with anyway.
You also have 2 more gems here that you can actually spread out if you want, so that you can have a blocker for Ashe. Guaranteed, if you wanted to.
Looks like Spain really taking time to decide here, and it's really unfortunate too because Spain is on the back foot. Lee Sin was not able to be played on curve on turn 5 here, so actually getting Lee Sin, which is the win con, online and buffed up seems like it's going to be a little bit of a project here on the side of Spain, and instead going to start using some of these gems, buff up the field, have some, you know, blockers that trade a little bit better with what Czechia is going to have incoming on an attack here. But I got to say, you know, Gems, you mentioned earlier having these 2 harsh wins early alongside that Icevale Archer. We might have a pretty big turn coming up soon to just have that Ashe OTK. 2 harsh wins feels like it's going to get the job done.
Well, we've got all of the sort of combo pieces assembled for the Lee Sin. We have the Zenith Blade, we have the Bastion to try and protect it, and, you know, the entire turn floated on the side of Czechia saying, you know what, I don't want to lose my Ashe just to push through all these other attacks. It's not really worth it. I need her on the field for the OTK, which we know isn't going to work out because there is a Hush in Spain's hand. You can't just turn off that Ashe and let your zero attack units block again, but it doesn't look like there's a good chance that Spain's going to be able to get those Dragonlings on the next turn unless you can go for your opponent killing this Mentor of Stones and getting additional gems.
Yeah, I mean, we have the Zenith Blade as well. Looks like we're not going to go for the Daybreak option with that. I mean, that would be a spell to play, but then you really just have another Zenith Blade to play if you're going to go ahead and get the Dragonlings next turn. Looks like he is going to go the route of the Mentor of the Stones that you mentioned, Boulevard, just get those gems instead, which, I mean, that's probably the better route to take. It, unfortunately, will probably really only be able to buff up, I don't know, what do you go in with? Just a Dragonling? You get the extra lifesteal on that one Dragonling, you get the gems, and you call it a day? Like, feels bad, but... There's
also a chance that Czechia just doesn't give them the gems, and if that's the case, then all of a sudden Spain's actually in a really rough position, and I think... not quite gonna die. I think the Ashe still is only at 1 out of 5, so we can't go for a big OTK just yet, but yeah, I don't think that there are actually going to be Dragonlings spawned on the side of Spain on the following turn, and you don't have to go for lethal. You can just get a really big attack off on the previous turn and make the next Ash lethal. Just that much. Just that much of a weaker board that I need. Maybe the Hush won't even be enough to stop it because I'll just have enough attackers into the amount of blockers that you have.
A flash freeze would be enough on the next turn, I believe. From the side of Czechia, if they draw flash freezes or a brittle, they would have enough. They can Harsh Winds brittle, and that would be 4, right? Because you get Harsh Winds, brittle is 3 plus Ash 4. Yeah, that would be the exact amount. They just there are options there. Reckoning would also be a fantastic option because that would, even if it gets denied, you're not going to feel too bad about throwing it out there because that limits what Spain can really be doing on that turn.
All right, it looks like we are actually setting up for the Ash OTK on the following turn, which we have like just enough damage for. I think this is actually 20 on the side of Czechia, so if literally anything comes out to interrupt this, we might even just get down the Sejuani first and then have the Ash attack do it.
I like Sejuani more because you get the overwhelm damage guaranteed, whereas if you go for the Harsh Winds and they have a Hush, they can start blocking again.
Yeah, I'm not ecstatic about that Harsh Winds on the 2 Dragonlings. Like, I definitely understand where Czechia is going with this, wanting to just try to go for the victory here. But, yeah, like you mentioned, a Hush... And I feel like that's a way that people a lot of times don't really remember to use Hush to unfreeze a unit. It does, in fact, work like that. So that seems like it'll be a way...
You hush the Ash.
You Hush Ash so you can block with the zeros.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that as well. So, but there's a lot of other ways to use Hush outside of just, okay, I'm just going to Hush somebody's unit. It will be able to allow Spain here to go ahead and survive for another turn. So that Harsh Winds, I really don't know if saving, that extra life gain from those Dragonlings might have been worth it on that turn.
I want to see if Ash should be pulling either the 0/3 Eye of the Dragon, right? If you're playing around Hush. Just so you don't lose it to Lee Sin blocking.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Lee Sin's Sonic Wave would actually kill Ash after the fact.
Yeah, because what's Lee Sin at for level up right now?
I think he's on 4. I could be wrong. There's 3 gems have been played, and what else? Is that it?
Cascade.
So that would be 4 with the Pale Cascade. Yeah, so...
Yeah, I believe it is at 4 out of 8, so quite a ways away from leveling still. Gonna have enough to get it on the next turn, but there is still that Harsh Winds. If you can survive this turn, though, and then Bastion the Lee Sin along with this... I think this is actually looking like a very probable lethal on the side of Spain.
Yeah, with Bastion, for sure. Because of the committals for the Harsh Winds for Czech to try and go for this push might actually end up costing them the match.
We can see here, too, like, this isn't even really threatening lethal. It doesn't look like Czechia was really ever planning on threatening lethal here. They were trying to go for kind of a 2-turn punch, which, if they make it to the next turn, maybe. But I don't know if that's going to be the case because we are going to get Lee Sin not just overwhelmed, but eventually leveled up with the gems as well and only needs to do 14 damage. He's going to be well over 7 attack with that overwhelm. Going to be able to do enough for the victory here and have spell shield, which means Czechia needs some other response on the top of a deck. Maybe another... we have Crystal Arrow on top of the deck.
Yeah, so that means that it will just be lethal for Spain. That Telegraph top deck from the Ash, meaning that Spain is going to knock tournament favorites Czechia out here in the round of 8, and this Lee Sin deck, finding its way against the Frostbite midrange. And I really want to see... Oh, yeah, you can see the reactions out of Czechia when the Bastion came out. They know it's over.
Yep. That feels really bad. And, yeah, I got to say, I think it was that push with the Harsh Winds. Now, granted, I don't... 8, 9, 10, 11. They actually wouldn't have had enough to play 2 Harsh Winds this turn, even if that was like a thing at this point. I don't really know how everything else might have played out, but I think they might have still been in a situation where they're losing to Lee Sin.
Yeah, they were still lost.
Yeah.
Either way.
But
they needed like a flash freeze, basically, is what they're looking for. I don't know.
Or
another second Ash.
Chance, but you know that the Crystal Arrow is on top of the deck, and I mean, I think we've actually started to see that more and more, where players get that telegraph top deck of the Crystal Arrow, survive
And
the
it's
OTK,
bad.
and then know that there's
Yeah.
nothing that you can do on the following turn to prevent something like this.
Yeah, instead of freezing your opponent, it's actually freezing your own tech. Not really allowing you to get back into the game, so that does feel a little bit bad. And Czechia, yeah, going to go ahead. Looks like they are thinking about surrendering, but they're going to stare at the board for a little bit longer. I mean, what do you do with that? But, like, you just kind of, you dwell on it for a second. You go, well, we lost, guys. Let's just sit here and think about our mistakes. Let's try not to do it again. And Spain taking it there. Nice big smile. All right, and Spain taking it over Czechia there. I think most people did think that Spain would be able to go ahead and take it over Czechia, so not too much of a surprise there. Good stuff from Spain. Glad to see them seeing some success here in EU Masters, and overall had an absolute blast. So I'm excited to bring you guys the rest of EU Masters. Make sure you turn on that bell, get notified when those videos do go live. Obviously, subscribe as well. You can't turn on the bell unless you go ahead and subscribe. But as always, everybody, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you, and peace out.